My talk is called End-to-End Test Before Merge, Cypress plus Shipyard. And this is a talk that I feel very strongly about. I think that this is something that would be considered an absolute best practice in testing had it not been for previous infrastructure limitations. And I'm going to talk about today about how you can run your Cypress end-to-end tests earlier on and more often, and why these limitations no longer apply. All right, well, let's get into it. All right, so here's a quick overview of what I'll be talking about today. I want to start off my talk with why exactly it is challenging to run your end-to-end tests prior to staging and why so few people are doing it. I also want to go into how you can empower your teams to run your end-to-end tests on every PR and how it might be an easier solution than we've ever had access to previously. I want to reiterate why testing before merge is an absolutely surefire recipe for reliable software. And then I want to wrap things up with a demo. I want to show you how you can do this at home. I want to show you how you can write a GitHub Actions workflow that will automate your Cypress end-to-end tests and run them as soon as you open a PR and on every commit thereafter. All right, so let's get into it. So in the past 15 or so years, there have been a ton of innovations in CI/CD, but unfortunately, end-to-end testing is kind of stuck in the past. We've seen many people have improved their deployment pipelines tenfold, although their end-to-end testing is where the blocks tend to come in. And we see a lot of people are still using the same end-to-end workflow that they've been using like for the better part of a decade. So what this normally ends up looking like is a feature will be working on a feature branch, and once they feel that that's complete, they open a pull request, at which point they loop in a coworker to perform code review. Once that passes, the branch is merged to main and deployed to staging, often with another maybe 5, 10, 15 other feature branches, which are then tested on the staging environment in parallel. At that point, it's up to the QA team to sift through the bugs and figure out to which feature branch each bug belongs. And this is where blocks tend to happen, because then developers are going to be pulled in and told, hey, like you have a bug on your branch, can you go back and fix this? And what they're going to do, they're going to submit a fix that they hope is going to solve that bug. They're going to loop in their peer again for code review, and they're going to wait for it to get deployed to staging before it can be tested again. And this can keep repeating until a bug is fixed. And this makes deploys very, very unpredictable. So, and when you're working with deploys, you don't want to be living this dangerously. So looking at this, there's a very easy and obvious solution that almost seems like too easy and too obvious. And what we like to call it at Shipyard, we say test before merge. And as I started my talk off with, I said that I absolutely believe that this would be considered a best practice had it not been for previous infrastructure limitations. And these infrastructure limitations aren't really in play anymore. I mean, you already run your unit tests on every branch before a merge because that's absolutely best practice, and you want to eliminate the number of bugs that get into your staging environment. But by running your end-to-end tests closer to the PR, you can do many things. You can benefit your developers and your QA team. So your developers will be able to identify issues faster because as soon as they open that PR, they'll be able to see the results of your end-to-end tests, and then they can keep iterating on that branch and solve any bugs as soon as they come up. And they can keep running those tests until they catch all those bugs. And that way, when they're working on a feature branch, they're not going to be context switching. They're going to be working on that one branch and not go back to it 2-3 days later when QA tells them, hey, this is broken. They're going to get it done then and there. So I'm just going to show you what this is going to look like in your workflow. So here we have 3 feature branches being developed in parallel. This is just a good visual of what moving testing earlier in your workflow can look like. So what will happen is a developer will be working on a feature branch. They'll open a pull request, and then in your CI, it will trigger the build of a testing environment. So this will be a full stack environment with your database and dependencies of your main environment. So it will be fully capable of running your end-to-end tests. And after that is built in the CI will trigger your entire test suite, your unit integration and end-to-end tests. And once it uncovers those bugs, that developer will go back and fix those bugs. And on that every commit, it will rebuild the testing environment and rerun the test suite. So that way, when they loop in the code reviewers aren't going to be looking for bugs. They're just going to be making sure you're following conventions, have good variable naming, you're just following what your organization's coding standards are meant to look like. Because code review really shouldn't be, it really shouldn't be done before automated tests, because you have put this time and effort into writing your test suite, and you want to be using it to its fullest extent. So at this point, you can merge as many branches as you need to your main and staging, and this won't cause any issues because, as luck would have it, these are going to uncover very few bugs because you've eliminated them earlier on. And then QA will have a very easy time sifting through any remaining bugs, and your org will be on track for a very timely deployment. So I said earlier that there were previous infrastructure limitations that kind of prevented people from using this workflow earlier on, and still tend to prevent people from using this workflow today. And that is that end-to-end tests do require a full stack production-like environment in order to run. You do need your database and you need any relevant dependencies, because these tests are designed to run on your staging environment, which mimics production, and you need your per branch environments to mimic your staging. But nowadays, there is a very easy solution. Previously, this used to be something that only very large organizations were capable of doing. It would take them a few dedicated engineers, months to a year, to build out this infrastructure. But now this is something you can entirely outsource. So the solution, we have pull request environments, also known as preview environments or ephemeral environments. And what you can do with these is, in your CI, you'll have a script that will build a production-like environment based on every branch, and it will trigger a run of your unit, integration, and end-to-end tests against this environment. Once you have those tests passed, you can iterate on this. Any commit you submit will re-trigger another rebuild of the environment and rerun of the tests. So you can solve bugs as soon as they arrive, instead of waiting for your staging environment to free up and waiting for QA to get back on you. And then at that point, you can perform code review. This will be very easy because your reviewers will not be looking for bugs. You can also send your Pure an SSO enabled link so they can interact with your environment in real time. And once this is all done, as soon as you merge the branch, the environment will shut down completely. And this is very nice because it does save you cloud costs that staging environments tend to incur. So I just wanted to reiterate that testing before merge is a surefire recipe for reliable software. And this is not just in your app alone, but this is also absolutely very necessary for the quality of your testing suite. So in your app, if you're testing later in the game, which by that I mean if you're testing in your staging environment, there are going to be bugs in your staging environment. And by testing before merge, you can prevent bugs from even getting into your staging environment to begin with. Because once bugs are in your staging environment, even if you go back and fix them, it's almost inevitable that you will end up getting bugs in production. And by catching them early on, you're shifting those bugs that are caught in production into bugs that are caught in staging, which makes it much easier to fix. And then bugs in staging ends up being the solution that or the problem that you're trying to solve there. So we've also noticed that testing before merge is a solution for a much more robust end-to-end test suite. So at Shipyard, we've noticed that many of our users, before they adopted ephemeral environments, they were running their end-to-end tests maybe twice per day. And after using ephemeral environments, they're running them upwards of 5 times per hour. So that's a huge increase of tests. So they're seeing these test performance more frequently. And this is very important because, end-to-end tests, when they're taking, 15 to 20 minutes to complete each run through, you want to make sure that your suite is as robust and, bare bones as possible. You want to eliminate your flaky tests. And when you're seeing these results in real time, it makes it very easy to see which tests are not performing up to spec and which ones you can eliminate, and make your test suite small and just keep it at a minimum. So we've noticed that our users have been able to eliminate about 42% of their end-to-end test suite on average, which is absolutely huge. All right, so I wanted to wrap things up with a demo. I wanted to show you how you can use Cypress and Shipyard together. we're going to have a GitHub Actions workflow that will act as our continuous integration. And what it will do is it will run our Cypress end-to-end tests on every commit and PR against a Shipyard ephemeral environment. So for the sake of time, I've pre-recorded a demo, but I'm going to talk over it completely. So just checking, you can all see this. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so as many of you might be familiar with, Cypress has a Venmo clone called the Cypress Real World app. And what I did was I created a Docker and a Docker Compose file. So this app is now Shipyard compatible. And this is the Shipyard dashboard. I opened it as a new application, and I'm going to look at the build details. So here we have the build, deploy, and run logs. This is built with Docker Build Kit. So we have a front end and back end service. This is defined in the Docker Compose file. So let's go see that. I'll show you what it looks like. So here are our front end and back end services. The back end is going to point to the database and the API, and the front end is where we're going to point our Cypress end-to-end tests. So these are important environment variables that are injected at build and runtime. And we're going to be using this Shipyard domain front-end variable as a way for us to point our Cypress end-to-end tests. Just going to show you what this app looks like. It's running an ephemeral environment on Shipyard now. Ignore the status code that happens. So right here, I'm just going to create an account. I'm going to get the name Natalie before it's taken and put in a pretty insecure password because don't need to worry about anyone accessing this. All right, so as you can see, this is a Venmo clone. Here's my account page. There's my Bank of America account. And there, I have no notifications. So just to show you how this works, I'll make a new payment. So let me request, how about $1,000 for a nice lunch? That sounds fair. It's all fake money anyway. All right, so I'm just going to log out. So that is the Cypress Real World app running in a Shipyard ephemeral environment, and it's built off of the base environment. So what I did was I wrote a suite of just a couple end-to-end tests just for demo purposes to show. For this demo, I wanted to show what it looked like to have these tests run against the ephemeral environment. So as you can see, that was my Shipyard front-end URL domain. And what this is doing, this is just creating a new user, logging in as the user, and it's going to do some onboarding. So this is the onboarding session. It's going to just register as a new bank account. All right, and then we're going to go to the settings page. We're just going to test putting in an email and a phone number. And this last test is important. It's just making sure that the save button is of type submit. All right, and as expected, our Cypress tests passed. All right, so what we have now is I want to show you what this looks like running in GitHub Actions. So on the Shipyard branch on my fork of the Cypress Real World app, I wrote an Actions workflow that will run the end-to-end tests on every commit. So here is the workflow. So as you notice, I have the Shipyard GitHub action here, which is now available on GitHub Marketplace. So if you want to check that out, basically what it does is on Shipyard, you get an API token and you add this as a GitHub environment variable or a secret. And what it will do is the action will take that environment variable, it will auth into your Shipyard org, and it will retrieve any environment variables that you need in order to run your end-to-end tests. And you can see this example uses the Cypress GitHub action as well. This runs Cypress tests, so it's very easy. You can do this into GitHub Actions. So because I want to run just that one specific test that I wrote, I'm using a custom run command. And this has already been run, but I'm just going to show you again what it looks like, because this is going to function exactly as how it did locally, because we're just connecting to that URL and running our tests against the ephemeral environment. All right, so I'm going to just submit a new feature because I want to show you what it looks like using a PR environment. So just pretend that this is a cool feature that I'm creating. I'm going to commit my new button feature, and I will create a new branch for it based off of my current working branch. All right, I'll commit that to my new branch. All right, and what this is going to do is it's going to trigger a build of the pull request environment based off of my new branch, and it's also going to trigger a run of that GitHub Actions workflow. So let me just open that PR based off of my Shipyard working branch, and just pretend that this is a cool pull request message about my current cool feature that definitely does more than just change a submit button into a reset button. All right, so look at that. There are end-to-end tests are running in GitHub Actions right now. So that's gonna take a while. So while we wait, let's see the results of our first GitHub Action run through. All right, so we're waiting for this to run now. So I pre-recorded this so I could show this at a much faster speed. So this is not a realistic representation of how fast this workflow will run. But now we're running our end-to-end tests against the ephemeral environment. It has the correct ephemeral environment URL. And right now it's running from that file that I gave it. So the first test passed, which is unexpected because this should function exactly as it did running locally. And that's great. We have our Cypress clean bill of health. Everything is working as expected. And we now can trigger this workflow on every single commit and know that this is our base case. It should work. So let's see how our other workflow is doing. So I'm also going to speed through this. Basically, what it's doing is right now the Shipyard environment is rebuilding. So this also might take a little bit longer than our previous environment since those tests were run against an existing built environment. All right, so there we go. So we're running our Cypress end-to-end tests. So, all right, as expected, that first one passes. And I wonder about the second one. I wonder what's going to happen there. All right, we're having an issue. It's almost as if I wrote that new feature to break the end-to-end tests. All right, well, this is not unexpected. Okay, so our Cypress end-to-end tests failed for this branch. So that is very unfortunate. We'll have to get that fixed. So what I'm going to do here is this is another best practice when running your end-to-end tests. So that is what my pull request environment looks like for the new button feature. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the base environment and I'm going to reload a previous database snapshot. I want to reset the database to a state before any end-to-end tests were run because these end-to-end tests will clutter up your database by adding new users. So what I'm doing is I'm just restoring the existing environment with a previous earlier state of the database from the base environment, not from the pull request environment. All right, so I think I know which bug broke the pull request environment and failed the end-to-end tests, and that is the submit button, because that test specifically looks for a button of type submit. But in the spirit of creating a cool new example feature, I'll just change it to a Cypress conf button. All right, there we go. So I'm just going to submit a fixed commit, and with all our luck, we'll push this, and it should trigger another rerun of the end-to-end tests. And so this is on 8 times speed. Okay, so hopefully get through this quickly. So this is also, keep in mind, it's rebuilding the Shipyard ephemeral environment. All right, so once that environment's built, it's going to be able to get the necessary variables. All right, there we go. So the first test passes as expected. And now here's our moment of truth. Is the second test going to pass? Fingers crossed here. All right, awesome. The test passed. So that's great. So that's how we fixed a bug on a pull request environment. And once we merge this, this environment will get automatically shut down. All right, and that is how you run your Cypress end-to-end tests on every commit against a Shipyard ephemeral environment. So I wanted to thank you very much for joining me today. I'm going to open the floor up to questions now. Also, I just wanted to give a shout out to my team at Shipyard. A few of them are in our virtual booth right now, so definitely stop by if you want to talk to us about end-to-end testing, DevOps, Shipyard, ephemeral environments, any of that. We're happy to chat. we're also giving away a pair of AirPods, and if you sign up for our mailing list. So I would definitely do that. I think it's a win-win because our mailing list is pretty great to begin with. So thank you. So if you want to learn more about ephemeral environments, there's ephemeral.environments.io, and we're always looking for pull requests. So if you want to add something, open a pull request. We will happily accept that. And check out shipyard.build if you want an easy way to get started with ephemeral environments.